All right, and welcome to a very special edition of 84 Feet with Cady and Cap. I'm Brian Cady, and uh, going back to my roots a little bit as somebody who attended Siena College and got my start in doing communications work at WVCO right there on campus at the Student Union at Siena College. Uh, it's going to be an opportunity here to take a look at the Siena women's basketball team, who has three Section 2 talents on it with a pair of graduate students and a freshman, and just got a commitment from a class of 2025 graduate. We'll get into that in a little bit. So it is an honor and a privilege to bring on the first year head coach for the Siena Saints, Terry Primm. Coach, welcome on. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Brian. It's an honor and privilege to be here, brother. Thanks for the time.
Absolutely. First thing I want to ask, as somebody who has spent a good chunk of their time in the past living in Florida, what kind of allegiances do you have? Like, is the Miami football team getting you pumped up for them maybe getting a national championship, or are you a little indifferent about that?
Yeah, it's funny because I've always kind of been a basketball guy through and through. And I haven't had much interest in football. And that may have come from growing up in Detroit, Michigan, because we didn't really have really good football. So I'm probably a little more aware of the Miami Heat and Orlando Magic, and of course, those guys they experienced a little dip, but now they're on the way up. Miami a little longer than the Heat. I'm sorry, the Magic, but they're both kind of rolling right now. So maybe those two guys, but other than that, man, it's all basketball for me.
Yeah, Miami definitely has a nice mix of veterans and youth, and Orlando obviously a lot of youth there, and they're on the build up. So does that mean you would be so like so big time Pistons fan? A lot of bad boys in your blood, a lot of Isaiah and Dumars and Lambeer and all them folks.
Yeah, they had a tremendous influence on us growing up because that was the era where they were coming up, and so they built all of the outside courts. They were in the community heavy, and then just seeing their ascension. As a fan, it was cool, but when you get into the business, I don't know how much of a fan you get a chance to be. Just doing a lot of studying. And so then doubling back to study how they built that organization was pretty cool. And then to see them do it again with the Chauncey Billups group, Ben Wallace group, that was cool too.
Now, just going back in time a little bit for you, I know you wound up playing some college ball yourself before you got into coaching. So I guess the big question I get out of that is when you look back at how recruiting was done during your playing days to the way it has evolved now, obviously the evolution of AAU and travel ball in general, showcase events. Um, what do you feel like is the most important approach to use at this point for recruiting now compared to back when you were playing or even when you were first coaching down in the Florida area?
I think that, well, back when I was playing, you didn't get a lot of exposure. And the events had started taking, it had started to become big. I remember Rick Ball's events. That was the one I attended that actually ended up placing me in Florida. I had gotten quite a bit of interest from that event, and the junior college I was playing at the time was going through a bit of transition. So I remember stacks of letters being sent to the office that I never got. I don't know if coaches were like well versed on how to handle that process back then. But I think now it's so many people involved in the process, even parents now. You got parents that are coaching, parents that are managing the recruiting process, parents that are responsible for the visits, parents that are training. And so it's so many more people involved. My parents, they just wanted you to have strong character and get good grades and keep the house clean, get your chores done. So it's just a little different now. But I think for us, we we are at a special place called Siena. Siena's awesome, incredible spirit, a tremendous, um, just great people that are on campus, and basketball being the number one sport, that's pretty cool. So knowing that we're not necessarily limiting our pool, if we get them from high school, then we're going to take them. I think every year we've had a good number of high school freshmen on our roster. The transfer portal is a real thing. Obviously, we've had kids transfer, but we're not going to take a kid in the portal unless they're coming from someone we know, and that individual understands who we are as a program and as an institution, and we can trust that young lady that they're sending our way fits perfectly. So we're pretty open.
Now, as somebody who is active on social media and had follows you and the Siena Women's Program on Instagram, one thing that I love seeing is how pretty much every day you're not just putting out basketball stuff, but you also have a very close connection to your faith. How do you? How important is your faith to you? I mean, obviously, it seems very important with all the stuff you put out there every day. But how important is it to you, and how you apply it to your coaching style, as far as teaching not just basketball to these young ladies, but also giving them life lessons to grow from and become adults in that respect.
Yeah, it's my guiding light, and not that I get it right all the time, but it certainly guides me throughout. It provides me with purpose, and I pretty much parallel that to my responsibility as a coach. I know they're not going to always get it right, but the standards don't change, and we just give them the grace to get there. But we want them to know what the standards are, and support them in absolutely every way that we can, and be able to provide them with different layers to the culture. In practices, it's going to be very intense. It's going to be high pace. We're going to have a high level of standard form in there to follow. And then outside of practice, it's very supportive and loving and reflective, and try to help them with their growth and inspiring. We want them to really understand the opportunity that they have, and the people around them that are here that are dedicated to their success as student athletes. And by the time they graduate, we want them to be high level in terms of their athletic development. We want them to be extremely confident and knowledgeable about the subject that they study while they were here. And we hope to have put them in front of people that can provide them with amazing professional opportunities, whether that's on the court or off the court, that they can matriculate into and just build an awesome life for themselves.
Now, obviously, part of your story involves your predecessor, Coach Jim Jabir, who retired, and then that led to you taking over as the head coach for the Siena Women's Program. Talk about how integral Coach was on your growth as a coach, and what it meant to be able to serve on his staff the last few years before he eventually retired.
Yeah, just tremendous. I mean, my approach to life in general is just surround myself with, smart people, innovative people, outside of the box thinkers, just to constantly keep pushing the envelope, and, always being in that growth mindset, which is something that we push down to the players. But what I loved about Jim was that despite his success, he didn't have the same ego that I may have experienced with folks who had a quarter of his success. And I always felt like, that's a strong requirement for me, because it's not just about the knowledge. I want to feel like I'm around great people. And Jim was just awesome to be around. And because we shared the same penchant for the development of the game and the growth of ourselves personally, then every day we spent a lot of time just breaking down every aspect of the game on and off the court. He was always willing to do that. And that was the cool part. And I guess it was cool that we built the trust really early, because, I don't think I was there 6 months when we were at Florida Atlantic, and Jim's like handed me a lot of responsibility, And by the time we left Florida Atlantic, he had given me tremendous amount of responsibility that carried over to our time here at Siena. So, he fought for me, vehemently fought for me to get this position. And the transition has been incredibly smooth because of the partnership that we had. It's been very seamless. So yeah, I owe a great deal of gratitude to Jim. And I got to say, I've been lucky to be around some really good people in the game throughout my career.
Now, obviously, he comes out and announces his retirement I think it was a month or two after the end of the season, and then that opens the door for, it opens the door for finding a replacement. Just kind of walk us through a little bit of what that process was like for you to be selected as the next coach, and then once you got the job, was there any kind of pressure at all or rush to make sure that you kept the incoming class of 28 intact as much as possible?
Well, the process, I don't know the details of it, but for me personally, I met with the president. It was a great conversation. I enjoy every interaction that I have with President Seifert, and we had a great conversation about the direction of the program and where it was currently, and what we could do to elevate it. And it was a pretty quick conversation, very succinct, very enjoyable. And that was really the extent of my process. And then, of course, they worked behind the scenes and got to a point where they wanted to tap me as the new head coach, which I was extremely excited about and grateful for. And then since then, it's funny. I don't know if I see things in the form of pressure. I think I personally wanted to see continuity because I know how important that is when you're building a program. You got to have continuity. So I didn't have a desire to try to do a mass overhaul. So even if I didn't know these kids and I didn't know the coaches, I probably would err on the side of continuity if the situation was as successful as ours was. But because I had known them and built a relationship, strong relationship with all of them, then it was a no-brainer for me to keep the continuity.
Now, currently, you have three Section 2 graduates on the roster. We'll start with the two grad students that are on the squad right now. Ahniysha Jackson, Baby from Albany High, as well as Valencia Fontonelle-Posson from Guilderland. Talk about those two and the growth that they've experienced as part of the Siena team, and maybe the level of expectations you have for them as really part of the senior leadership on the squad for this season.
Couldn't be more proud of Baby. Tremendous growth over the years, extreme commitment to not just the game, but our program and the mission, the vision for our program and Siena as an institution. That's been pretty cool to see that evolution. And she's been so committed to growth that I've seen her literally go from a talent to a player. I've seen her go from someone with influence to a leader. And she's so hungry to keep that going that it's pretty inspiring, not just to me as her head coach, but to the staff, to the team. And so she has a tremendous impact on our program. As far as expectations, I mean, it's sky's the limit for her. I really think she has a chance to be a first team player. She deserves to be a first team player. So we'll see how it plays out. No pressure for her to be that. It's more about what the progression that we take every day. So if that progression continues the way it's been, then she's going to end up having a tremendous year. And then with Valencia coming off of the season-ending injury from last year, it's just great to see her back in the mix. She's still trying to work out the kinks and kind of smooth things out, but I don't think I've never coached anybody more passionate, higher motor. The dedication level is incredible. She's willing to do whatever it takes. She makes plays that you just don't coach. You can't take claim for the plays that she makes because she just goes and makes things happen. And so two very important members of our program. and the success that we have, they will be at the core for sure.
And then the other Section 2 representative on the squad right now is freshman Allison O'Hanlon, the all-time three-point leader in Section 2 history out of Dwaynesbury High School. She has been battling a foot injury over the last few months. I know she wasn't able to really do much during the Ireland trip back in August. First off, your impressions of her as she's coming to the program through summer workouts and preseason workouts, and what is there any update as to how she's doing with her therapy and how soon we can expect to see her on the floor?
Yeah, that's a I'm always pretty restrictive about talking about those kind of things because it's so sensitive to the student athletes. So I tend to keep those matters private and let them talk about as much as they want to.
Sure.
But in terms of her impact on the program, I don't think you're going to meet a stronger character kid, more dedicated kid. She's extremely tough and resilient, amazing shooting ability, strong desire to be great. She brings that every day, and she's so coachable. Even if she doesn't have a perfect day, when she comes in ready to give it everything that she has, no matter if she's limited or not. But I love the fact that she's extremely coachable. So you can talk to her about anything that she needs to adjust, and she's willing to adjust it immediately. She's like immediately bought into what we're trying to do. And so, we're looking forward to her having her full opportunity one day to express who she is as a talent and a young lady out there on the court doing what she loves to do.
And to wrap up the Section 2 portion of this, I did mention in the intro how you did get a commitment in the last week or two from another Section 2 eventual graduate for the class of 2029. That's Azera Gates, the guard out of Albany High. What did you grow to love about her game that made you guys end up putting an offer out there to her? And how happy are you to know that she's going to be on board starting next fall?
Our culture is FLT, family, love, and toughness, and the family piece is really important. We want to be able to do two things that great families do. They spend a lot of time with each other, and they build a lot of trust. And the love piece is we want them to love Siena, the game, and love each other. We call that the Siena sisterhood. And the toughness is being competitively tough, but being smart enough to understand how to live out the championship lifestyle on the Division I level. And she checks every one of those boxes. She is super connected and dedicated to her teammates. She is extremely passionate about the game. She's been extremely successful since she's been playing. I think she was always one of those younger players who played with the older players. So she's been playing on a high level for a long time. And I think it's going to be great to see her transition from high school to college because she'll have a more balanced attack. She won't be asked to do as much, play as long. So I think higher efficient Azera Gates is a very dangerous player, especially because she's got this gift of court vision. Like she just sees things. She gets the ball to the right people. She's a willing passer. And our system is a very balanced system. In order for it to work, you have to have 5 people on the floor that can all do a bunch of different things, but are willing to make plays for themselves and others. And she's certainly one of those kids who she does that naturally. And she knows how to put the ball in people's hands where they want it. And when you get it back to her, she can make a play as well.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I think she's one of the most fearless players I've seen in my time watching Section 2. She is not afraid to drive to the hoop and draw contact, which I feel like it's missing in the game sometimes. It's like force the foul, make them stop you, and she
Yeah, I like
great
that.
doing that.
Yeah, that's great.
Uh, Now just to transition back to the bench real quick for Siena. Uh, Two of your assistant coaches are former MAC women's basketball players, Heather Steck, a former Siena Saint, and Sydney Rosales, who also is local from Colony, but played in the MAC as well, won MAC championships. Um, how important to you was it to have two former MAC women's basketball players on your coaching staff, especially a former Siena Saint herself and Heather Steck, and the experience they were able to bring to the table that maybe you might not have gotten had you hired other assistants from, other programs that aren't familiar with the conference and the way that things are played out at that level?
Yeah, I've always had a appreciation for alumni just over the years coming up in the game, studying the game. It always seemed like the more successful programs had folks from the institution. And then taking it to another level, people from the conference that are familiar with the conference style and the evolution of the conference, and those were all taken into consideration when it was my turn to make a decision on both of those guys. So with Siena being such a special place, we wanted to be well connected on campus, and Heather definitely checks that box for us. And and on top of that, having a Siena degree, high quality professional, brings a lot of passion to the situation. She's had success as a player as well. And so that helps, when she's interacting with our kids, she's interacting with our recruits, that passion comes across and it's easily caught. And with Sydney having that experience with the Marist program during their heyday, if you will, and she's experienced that success. But at the same time, she's had to overcome quite a bit herself, and so I think that provides a great space for the kids to know someone who's been highly successful but had to overcome a bit, and so it gives us just that extra element to the family aspect that's so important to us. So they've been tremendous.
Two more questions for you before we wrap up, Coach. First thing I want to ask is, obviously, the conference is extremely competitive, and including a new program that just joined in Sacred Heart, who is coming off two straight championships in their prior conference, now moving into the MAC. When you look across the board, though, is there a certain team that uh, br- brings you guys to another level, maybe motivates to get a little more out of you, or causes any troubles, or is it just a case of look at everyone the same, don't try to put anybody on a pedestal that we don't have to.
Yeah, we don't want to deal with trap games and letdowns and not respecting our opponent, and that's just me in general. But being in the league for a couple of years and knowing all of these guys personally, all of these young ladies personally, they're tremendous people. They're great coaches. They have great programs, and so you got to respect that. And we're going to always hold them in a high regard, no matter who comes in the door, because we know that anybody can win on any given night, and you just don't want to be on the road wrong end of the negative momentum. You don't want to be on that side to where you're losing games because you lost that mental edge because you didn't consider someone as much as you should have. And then at the same time, you don't want to put someone on such a pedestal that you already psych yourself out from being able to get the job done that night. So no, they all get our respect. But at the same time, we feel pretty confident about competing against all of them. And we're looking forward to it all playing out, when the season's starting. And we want to make sure that we create an environment here that will always have us on the right side of the win-loss column, and we're doing that by a heavy promotion of getting folks at our games, with the 1,000 season ticket drive and the 1,000 student participation. Our gym is about 2,300 capacity. So if we got that plus local businesses and folks that are catching fire, catching the heat of Siena women's basketball, is going to create an environment that we're never going to lose in.
All right. Last question I got for you. Things are obviously ramping up now. Just went through conference media day recently. Practices. Every day is a day closer to that season opener for the Saints. When you take a look at the squad, nice balance of veteran leadership and some youth that's coming to the program. What are your own expectations for the squad? I mean, obviously, the easy answer would be, oh, we want to win the conference championship. But generally speaking, what specifically are you looking from out of this team as you start the season and going forward? What is your expectation with that?
Yeah, I just want us to be deeper. Sometimes last year I felt like we were top heavy, and we relied on one or two kids a little more than you would want, and that doesn't play well deep in the season because everybody's game planning for shutting down those few kids, and now you may not have the supporting cast that are prepared for those moments. And I think, I really want to invest in our bench. I want us to be a really deep team. The style that we're playing, we're trying to score 90 a game. We scored 68 last year. So if we're in the high 70s, low 80s, that would be moving in the right direction. We've always been one of the more fast-paced teams. I think our pace of play is 87th in the country, and we're at 73 possessions a game. So you got to have depth in order to play that way. And our defense, we have goals. We want to hold people to 60 or less. We're playing a high number of possessions. So we know that, it might be a little unrealistic to hold people around 50, but we want to have a stingy defense. So that means that we're a two-way team that can get it done on both sides of the ball, which is not always easy. Teams sometimes pick their side. They're either going to be a defensive team or they're going to be an offensive team, and we're going to try to do both. We feel like that style is very entertaining. It's exciting to the recruits. They want to play that way, and but it's hard to play that way. So we put a lot of time into training that way. But at the same time, you can't do that without having players that you can trust out there. So that's going to be the biggest expectation, is that we get a large body of kids ready to be contributors. If they're all ready, I'm going to play all of them. Some are going to play more than others, but I think everybody that wears a Siena jersey should be ready to go.
Especially YouTube exclusive here for 84 Feet with Cady and Cap. It's been an honor and a privilege to have Siena women's basketball head coach Terry Primm on the show. Coach, thank you very much. Good luck with the season ahead, and I'm sure we'll be in touch over time. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Hey, thanks, Brian. Let's do it again, brother. Thanks.